balance. Mr. Miyagi constantly told Daniel LaRusso to make sure he found balance. As dads, we constantly seek balance with our partners, balance with our kids, our friends, and especially our work. How do we even begin to set those boundaries? What are our supports? How do we even know where to make those sacrifices? We'll talk about this next on Three-Dimensional Dads.
Exploring fatherhood in the next dimension.
I'm Jay.
I'm Derrick.
And I'm Ian.
And we all work.
Work.
Actually, I did not work today because we had a snow day.
Yeah.
And as a public school educator, I get snow days.
And as someone that works from home, my work-life balance was thrown into a real chaos today.
Same here. Yep.
The whole family's home with a dog, and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, it's tough to find balance. I mean, as you know, I don't want to go gender normative here, but like, you know, dads, we feel like the breadwinners. We feel like we have to be at work. We can't take days off. It's a tough thing. So that whole pandemic thing when everyone was home, right? It kind of threw us for a loop.
Right.
Those
working from home
5 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I suddenly was working from home. Or I'd go into the office and my kids went to their thing.
Yep.
And it was never the two met. Where once I started working from home, then suddenly I had to deal with kids at the same time and being a dad. It was like, that was a lot to have to balance. So I think this, as a topic that came up for the three of us, we talk about this all the time because it was such a central thing to our podcast of, wow, balancing all that, keeping your head on straight, making sure you're doing right by your kids, but also still doing your job. That's a lot to balance. So that's what we thought would be a good episode to talk about.
Yeah. I think it's also interesting, too, that, Jay, you brought up gender, right? In the fact that I feel that before the pandemic, right, men would always be the ones to be the breadwinners. But I think that also the pandemic, COVID, also threw that in chaos because then we had to learn how to be, better partners at home.
That's right.
We had to balance things like, okay, we also need to run the vacuum cleaner and do some of the laundry and also get on the Zoom call.
This is true. That's true.
That's a hard, as someone that works from home, it seems like, I could just go throw in some laundry. Like, I'm the one who's home. Like, right? I could pick up the house. But then when I'm working, it's like, it's not always as easy as that.
It's not,
It's a balance. I mean, it's a hard thing.
And so what does that look like? All right, what does balance look like? We have to have like this 30,000 foot view of what balance is. And I think it means being able to understand that as dads, as parents, as adults, we can't do it all. Because if we try to do it all, I mean, we can do a lot, don't get me wrong. But if we are honest about our own limits, that's how we find balance. We have to be honest about our own limits because trying to exceed our limits, it's self-destructive. We can't exceed our own limits because then we're not helping anyone and we're wearing ourselves down. I truly believe that stress and illness really come together. So we have to really have our own limits or else, we're going to get sick and it's going to be self-destructive.
Well, I mean, I feel with limits, something that's very important when you say that, Jay, is that if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know where you're going, I feel that can lead to that spiral where you could just continuously work. If you don't have the balance, if you don't have goals, I feel like, then that is the important thing. If you don't know what your North Star is, where your ship is going, and how you're going to direct yourself to those goals, I feel like that's when things can go into chaos. There's lots of resources. I feel like if you don't have personal goals, if you don't have professional goals, if you don't have family goals even, right, then you don't know where you're going and you're spiraling through every day and you're just going through a routine and anything can get out of control. But if you have a goal for the week, if you have a goal for the month, everyone talks about resolutions. If you have a plan, I feel like that can help you establish where you're going. There's lots of great resources on how to set goals. Lots of great podcasts. There's the Tim Ferriss Podcast, TED Talks. TED Talks talk about this all the time. The Art of Manliness is also a really good male-centric one that he also interviews a lot of people that talk about goals and direction, but just from the male perspective as well. And there's also the Robbins Podcast. That also is really great. And a book that I can't recommend enough is Atomic Habits. It not only does it talk about your goals, but how do you break those goals down to make them achievable? So if you want to get in shape, how do you do that? Well, you make a little habit of, I'm going to set my sneakers right at the bed. So when I get up in the morning, I'm putting my sneakers on. Or I even just drive to the gym Now, if I drive to the gym, maybe I'm going to go inside the gym and actually go start doing that work. I had a goal. I have a goal this year to read more, right? And so my goal is to read 1 page a night. But inevitably, I read more than 1 page every night. And that's hopefully going to make me read more books. We'll see we'll see how that
So
goes.
is it what they do in a podcast? Like we'll put some things down in the comments.
Yeah,
down in the right down there in the show notes. So yeah, we'll put some links in there for you. Ian, what about you? How do you find out?
I didn't know I didn't have goals until right now. And now I don't think I have any goals.
Slacker.
Sure you do.
Yeah, your goals are usually to edit this podcast.
There you go. Podcast. That's a good goal.
Yeah,
That is a goal.
that is cool.
So I think amongst the three of us, I work from home. That's like my unique thing and my unique angle.
Yeah.
And so I have 2 different fronts when I'm thinking about work-life balance and what success looks like. So I have my work encroaching on my personal life. There's that one aspect where it's like, am I working outside my hours or that? But I feel more often have my family encroaching on my work hours, where I'm on a serious project or I'm doing something intense and my family's here or the dog's here, or like there's a lot of distractions that if you're in an office you don't have. Is that like if you're in an office, everyone around here has a common goal, the project, the thing we're talking about, the meeting. Where when I'm at home, it's like I have people with very different goals that are here. And it can get challenging when like there's summer vacation. Yep. And suddenly I have a house full of people all the time while I'm doing work. Sometimes it takes a lot of focus or concentration. That can be tough.
Oh, yeah.
Or like a sick kid. Where like when they were toddlers, I mean, this is something that, I think all of our kids are older now. When I had little toddlers, it was hard when they had a sick day. It's not the same now where like they can kind of, my kids are more self-sufficient, but that was really challenging to be working from home.
Yes.
And have a sick kid that just constantly needs something.
Yeah.
So that was tough. But I feel like when I get what success looks like for me with work-life balance is when I have that normal routine. Everyone goes to school, they're out of the house, they come back at set times. And so I like that my family has an understanding that like they matter so much and I can't wait to talk to them. But like if I'm doing something intense for work, they respect that I'm still working when they come home. So that's what we work on.
So really, you're talking about boundaries, Ian, is what I'm saying. Like there's there's the family boundary, there's the work-life boundary. And sometimes it's hard to be flexible with those, but we need to find that flexibility, right, Derrick?
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth, Jay. So yeah, there is also, again, another great book called literally The Book of Boundaries. And it's interesting that you mentioned that because, Ian, what you're exactly describing is if the kids are all running around and everything, you have to say, hey, daddy needs until, the big hand hits the little hand hits the 3 and the big hand hits the 12, and then we can play. But until then, you need to go play with your Switch. You need to go do something quietly. So it's about establishing being clear and kind with your boundaries. That's definitely something that she teaches like in this book. And she gives these scenarios for all different types of boundaries, whether it's professional, the guy that's making the off-color comments at the office. How do you establish boundaries with that? With your spouse, with your friends, and she gives these great examples of green, yellow, and red boundaries. So like green boundaries are like kind boundaries and being like, hey, I don't think, when you said that it was okay. But then like red is like, no, I'm taking you to HR. This is not okay. I need to leave this conference room right now.
Yeah.
Kind of immediately thing. So like the idea though,
I've seen some of those.
The idea though is to like be upfront and be extremely clear with your boundary. And if that boundary is going to be crossed, not giving like a consequence and everything, but just being like, you're crossing that boundary. And therefore, like maybe I cannot continue to see you on Sunday, right? Or mom, if you're going to insist on making comments about my spouse like this, then we're going to ask you not to come over, right? Ooh. Things of that nature, right? I also think something that's important though, Ian, that you were talking about, especially with when you're working and you're with your kids, is being present. So I feel like you can't do everything all at once. So you need to either be focused on that work or you need to be focused on playing with your kids, right? You can't be doing, pay attention to the movie, be at work, play with your kid or be on that date with your partner. Don't be on the phone. Don't be doing 10 million other things. Don't take the work call. Be present. And I think that's also a really important thing too, in terms of balance.
I think that's a maturity thing.
Yeah.
Is that, I know that like, different points in my life, I'm like, I'm a multitasker and you can do a lot of things poorly at once. And I think it's really overwhelming when I'm like, I'm listening to music and I'm writing something. And I'm like, when it's too much, it gets really overwhelming of like, do one thing at a time. Yeah. Play a video game, do a thing, but like have your focus there and calm down.
Yeah, exactly.
I know I heard this somewhere, but someone says don't, and this is going to be, I don't know if we can use this word, don't half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah, totally.
No, because there really is no such thing as multitasking. It's difficult to do well.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I mean, talking about boundaries, I love that for my job, I have a work phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's somewhat of a unique thing because I've seen some folks where if your personal phone is your work phone, then that boundary is a lot harder to keep.
Yep.
I know you can set up different profiles, but that just gets into stuff. So I like that I have a phone and I have a dedicated workspace.
Yep.
So like I have like the desk that I sit at, and when I get up and leave, that is where I can get up and leave work. Where that's another thing. I know some people that they work all over the house. And so I feel like that's a different, like maybe they're in the kitchen or they're sitting in like all different places. I like having an office in my house, a place, a desk, and then when I'm not here, I am no longer in that mode. And so I like having those hard boundaries. And I also think if we're talking about work and jobs, I'm blessed to have a great company, and it's a corporate culture thing. Colleagues that respect boundaries and respect, hey, once it's 5 o'clock, they're not sending 1,000 emails. They're not, they're not saying like, hey, why haven't you done that? Oh, I need this. When you work with companies that work across the U.S., time zones. I mean, we have people that are in, that are in Pacific time that are still sending emails when I'm off work.
Yep.
Or I'm sending them before that they wake up. And it's like, this is what's happening with globalization and with working with companies that are like that. That can be tough. So on the flip side, I thought too, my family helps me keep boundaries with work. Because at 5 o'clock every day, I have little girls just bounding into the room being like, Dad, guess what? And I've been on work calls where it's like, they're like, oh, is that your kid? Okay. Oh, I think you need to go because they're home. So I like that my family helps me in that way.
We'll have to edit the clip out to like send to your work, by the way, that says,
yes,
my job is great.
Well, I see a lot of places
Ian.
that are, yes. Well, no, I see a lot of places that are not. And that's always my fear of like,
absolutely.
This is true.
That's an easy thing to get into is that it's with, the pace of everything. And so I feel like that is something that is rare. And I appreciate that.
1,000%.
And you guys work in the private sector, right? You guys both work in the private sector. I work in a municipality. I work in a public school. It's a lot different.
Yep.
So with my work, my flexibility, I mean, like I have to go into work. There's no working from home. We tried that during the pandemic for half a semester. It did not work. So when it comes to like kids being sick and stuff like that, when I have to be flexible, and this is a challenge for me, really comes down to discussing it with your partner and really talking about the ways that we can give each other flexibility so we can be successful for our kids, but also successful for our work. My wife's also an educator. She's a early childhood. She works with babies. Her job is a little bit more flexible. So we try to like do like a kind of a 2-for-1 thing. Like if she has to be out, 2 days to my 1 day, like just to, because I've been out this year. I don't know if you guys have followed this, but everyone's been sick. It's been one of the worst years for sickness ever. And I've been out a lot and she's been out a lot and our daughter's been out of school a lot. So we have to like have those discussions and make sure we're clear about, look, you're going to stay home this day. And if she's still sick, I'll stay home or like next time. And we have to have those discussions. And there's like to do and must do's. And we have to have those solid lines and kind of those dashed lines. Like we have to have things that are pretty secure. And we have to say like, we have to not let me have to be out on faculty meeting days. So even though Wednesday's your long day, I understand that, but I have a faculty meeting that I have to be at. It's one of those things, and it's different for
me. I have podcasting.
That's right.
Take the kids for bedtime because I'm doing a podcast.
It literally happened
right
tonight.
Now. Right, it's happening right now.
It's happening right now. I keep doing this, like it's all in the comments.
Downstairs?
All in the comments.
Are you upstairs? They're upstairs for me.
I am in the downstairs. Upstairs. The left and right.
We should say we'll put it in we'll put the links in the downstairs.
Yes.
We'll put the links in the downstairs.
We can put it in the upside down. Stranger Things, come back, please. No.
Yes.
Everything we just talked about comes with challenges, though, and challenges really do kind of drive our work-life balance stress, right, Ian?
And this is, as friends, this is what we talk like the most about. We're like, oh man, we talk about life, and we talk about work, and we talk about how everything smashes together. Something I've always found hard now being a remote worker is I used to be able to decompress. Like when I had a train ride or a commute, I liked it because I could sit there and like work stayed in Boston, and then there was a train ride. So by the time I got off, I felt like myself again, like a person. Sometimes when I get out of something intense and I'm just a dad immediately at home, it's like I could go from a super intense call or working on a project that takes a lot of mental energy to just like silly dad time. And like I have a shorthand with my wife where I say like I'm still in work mode.
Yeah.
Because sometimes she'll start talking to me and I'm like, okay, so this person's here at noon. I just sent the invite for this. And it's like, I start project managing the family. I'm still in work mode.
That is a dad thing.
Shirt I'm going to put on the refrigerator right now.
I know.
Oh, we have a dry erase calendar for the week and for the month.
We do.
Yes. So, and also with my daughters, I've worked out hand signals. So, I mentioned earlier that sometimes, at 5 o'clock, they just come in and come barging in. They have like snacks in their hands and like, hey, dad. And so I have a like, not right now. I've worked out when they come in the door. I have hand signals working out. Or, something else that we had to work out, especially during the pandemic, and I still do, is boundaries about when I have an important meeting or something I have to focus on. Is that, please don't run the tub. When someone turns the tub on, it's right over my head and is the loudest sound on the planet. But it's working out with the people saying like, hey, here's what I'm doing at work. Family, I need you to be chill for a little bit instead of like having juggling bowling balls in the house. So, and some of that takes planning and communication, but that's how I've gotten by.
Pets. I have my cat cruise by all the time.
Yes.
Please, somebody take the dog. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, my biggest challenge is flexibility. Like my job isn't, there's 180 school days and I have 185 days I have to be in the building. So we have to use our village, right? So, my daughter sometimes goes to work with my wife early in the morning, and then one of the kids that goes to her school also has a kid in the preschool. So we use our village, right? Carpools, play dates, getting and giving time, right? A lot of people like, I'll take this kid to dance this time. Can you take them home? Or, hey, after gymnastics, do you want to feed them? And then, on Saturday, I'll take the kids for a few hours and do that. So we have to really use the time we have. Again, like working from home or working in the private sector, maybe there's a little bit more flexibility. I am really locked into a schedule. So like I am 2 days a week. I am definitely taking my daughter in the afternoon. Can I help you? Can I, if I'm off one day, can I take your kid to dance? And then you can have a couple hours, right?
Yeah.
Working with those parents is really important. And then you get kind of a flexibility multiplier, right? And that's the way it goes, I think.
Yeah.
Hashtag flexibility multiplier.
Don't math me. Don't math. No math.
Yeah. I mean, not only talking about relationships like with other parents and your neighbors or like even your teachers, right? If you're a parent and your teacher, right? But also with your own spouse, right?
Yeah.
I mean, making sure, now, in our age, right? I mean, everyone's working. Everyone's contributing. Our spouses are working. We're working. And I talked about, the gender burdens. We have this, innate instinct to provide. However, I think it's still expected a lot that, women will be taking care of certain things in the household or think about different things than we do, right?
Yeah.
And so there's kind of that misbalance. So it's like checking in with our relationships and saying, how are you doing? Or can I take the kids to dance, or initiating something, or paying the bills? Like, who's taking care of all that, right? And it's making sure relationships require work, man. I mean, we've talked that we're in therapy a lot, but the other thing too that this is something that's poor upon myself is like time management, because even when I get that little bit of free time, I'm like, I am going to do 17 things in 1 hour.
Yep. And then I fall asleep.
Yes. It doesn't happen. I don't do one. So, I mean, I think those are things that I'm always looking at.
We are all stressed about stuff, aren't we? Like, hey, we really are. We're stressed about being dads. We're stressed about making sure work's okay. We're stressed about making sure our kids are at their next activity, right? So let's wrap it up. But before we do that, I do want let's do a quick little thing about mental health, because I think that part of work-life balance is the ability to really do mental health work for ourselves. Yes. So
Going back
meditation for me. I love putting on rain sounds, and I'll sit on the floor and I'll stare at the ceiling and I'll kind of just zone out. There's really no rhyme or reason to it. I just like that zoning out. I'm taking time for myself. One of the things I also do that I really love, and if you're a dad who lives anywhere near anywhere, there's probably a Freemasons lodge near you. I have found it to be like my monthly, or, you know, if I go to a different event other than our regular monthly meeting, hanging out with other guys and just having that time, like whether, like, even forget about Freemasons, going to the movies with you guys, that's a great mental health thing. But
totally
doing the Freemason stuff, there's a lot of other dads in the organization. It's not too many nights depending on how long you're involved, but a lot of these guys are dads, or they're older and they've had kids. They're good resources. And Freemasonry itself, just as a quick plug for Freemasonry, it has really made me learn to be a better person. And that's the whole goal of Freemasonry, is providing charity for people in relief. And that makes me feel good. And that's my self-care. That's I really do like it. I really do like it. So,
and you learn how to lay bricks? What is Mason?
So I don't want to go on too much of a tangent, but we'll put a link down in the, we'll put a link down there.
Down.
If you're in Massachusetts, massmasons.org. It's a great thing. But no, it's a philanthropic organization with kind of this. You know what? If you have questions, I am Iron Dad with underscores between each word. You can Instagram message me, and massmasons.org or whatever. So if you're interested in masonry,
email us at 3dimensionaldads@gmail.com.
That's what he said. Derrick, how do you get that message in?
I think actually, and when we were lining this all up, I think we all do some type of kind of mindfulness, kind of some breathing meditation type of thing. And during the summertime when it's nice out, I've got this porch that we renovated, and I just sit out there and I do a little bit of breathing and get some sunlight in my eyes every morning. But I like being physical. In the morning, if I go to work out, I do CrossFit. And one of the reasons why I enjoy it is it's not just going to the gym, it's the socialization aspect. You are going with a bunch of people, a bunch of, adults, middle-aged people to younger people, and it's a community. And that's part of the thing too. I think it's just like we do this podcast for the community, finding other geek dads out there. I think that's very important, that you find your tribe. We've talked about this in other episodes and things like that. And I think that's really important for mental health. The other thing too, actually, that I like, and it's going back to something that you said, Ian, was I do sort of miss that commute to work, because that was my time where I listened to podcasts or I read books on, well, I'll say tape, right? But I mean, like things like Audible, right?
It's reading,
right? And those were, the times for me for learning, right? We talked a lot about finding your mental game or leadership type of things. Those were my times for doing that. So those are the ways that I decompress or I better my mental health. What about you, Ian?
I think podcasting. We're doing it right now. Hey. Right. I mean, I think that's a good mental health thing. I think through the pandemic, this definitely kept me mentally be able to commiserate with with you guys and having a podcast here. It helped me a lot to be able to talk about feelings and do stuff. So this was definitely part of my mental health. Exercise. Again, I like cycling. I have an exercise bike, and I think that always clears my head in a way that's awesome. Meditation, mindfulness meditations. I took a whole class on stress management. And it was about closing your eyes and picturing your breath in and out. And that's pretty awesome. And then video games. I thought that's something, you guys don't mention it, but man, Minecraft, it is beautiful. Or I'm playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 right now. And you're just in the woods and it's beautiful.
No Man's
Sky. It's cold outside. It's snowing and it's angry and it's cold and it's dark. But then I get to go and be in medieval times in a beautiful lit forest. And it's wonderful.
I sit in space in No Man's Sky. Just sit and chill and look at the stars. And I think that's
David Bowie.
I think that's a great place to wrap it up. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for joining us for this discussion about finding that work-life balance. It's not something that we three guys are going to solve in a half hour, but getting this heavy stuff out there is so important to our community of dads.
If you like this talk, please follow us on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. And if you're already subscribed, share us with your friends.
So let's lighten it up next time, shall we? For the first time this season, we're going to go old school with some DOS, Dads on Screen. And this episode is going to be Pixar. How does this master of animation portray us, dads, on screen? You'll find out next time on 3-Dimensional Dads. 3 friends, all dads, exploring every dimension of being a geek.